Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Healthy Practice, Healthy Patients podcast, where we focus on the health of your practice so you can focus on the health of your patients. Here, we keep you updated on updates in the marketplace. I'm Drew. Let's go. So, just a little update. We'll be doing just episodes by myself. Tanya has recently accepted a job, and so we'll be on a touch and go basis. Not sure if she'll be able to join with us, but in the meantime, there are some updates in the marketplace. This past week, the CPI report, the Consumer Price Index for the month of March, was just published. There's a lot of enthusiasm from the report because there was actually a decrease in the index. So for the month of February, there was 0.5% increase in inflation. But for March, it was only 0.4%. So the incremental difference of 0.1% in decrease. So by all indications, the Fed's strategy to cool the market and bring down the prices is working. The way that they're doing that is by increasing the interest rate, which they have done. They've increased it by 0.25% at the end of March. So it's been over a year time where they've been increasing the interest rate. So, but I'm kind of reminded by the weather there in Utah. Just recently, we were there for Easter, and it was beautiful. It was one of the best days of the year. Up until that point, winter has been strong, full force. It reminded me of the Groundhog Day. Where they pull the groundhog out and to see if he sees a shadow. If he sees a shadow, I'm not sure which one it is, but if they see the shadow, it'll be another 6 weeks of winter. Well, it feels like it's been another 6 months of winter. Winter just won't end. But there's some telltale signs that perhaps winter is ending with an increase in inflation, with inflation getting more in control. But there is a quote from Jerome Powell. He says that rate cuts are not in our base case, meaning, yes, they do intend to increase the interest rates again in May, but they're not going to bring down the interest rates. If anything, if they're not going to increase it, they're going to at least hold the interest rates for the foreseeable future. So let's look at some of the priorities of consumers and what they have going on. What are the things that they prioritize? I found this chart, which I thought was really interesting. You'll see that there's a little bit of a theme where the general population, they really prioritize travel. And we've kind of been saying that on this podcast, that travel for 2023 is going to be making a big comeback. And so far, that's what we're seeing through Q1 with domestic and international travel taking place. But that is a priority for consumers this year. Also, 14% really prioritize luxury leisure travel. So you can kind of see the theme of what's important for American consumers. Pretty interesting. Food and dining there in the bottom left is 32%. If you were to add up these percentages, it wouldn't make sense. What they were told to do was to pull and choose which of the top two areas or criteria that they had prioritized with their spending in the upcoming calendar year of 2023. And these were the findings. Food and dining, I thought, was interesting, 32% there in the bottom. And there in the bottom center, you'll see home purchase, 13%. The real estate market is cooling off. So we can see what American consumers are prioritizing. And on average, from this same study, is about each American, for their budget for the whole entire calendar year, they were going to spend about $4,677 on vacation this year. Also, part of that report I thought was interesting is that on average, there's about 16 vacation days that each American plans to use this year. And that's based off of a 5-day work week. So not including the 2-day weekends. So if you're looking at this and you're trying to take it in, you would think, man, there's a lot of optimism, a lot of hope. You know, people are back to spending, despite the rise in cost of living. People are still willing to go out there and spend money. So it's encouraging in that way. But there's something that is concerning to me that I also found. You know, how are people affording this, right? And I think it's interesting to kind of see what are the consumer trends that we're seeing in the marketplace. Here, I'll scroll down just a little bit so that you can see on the x-axis the years. And you'll notice that there's the blue line, which is cumulative excess savings, so the amount of savings that Americans have in the bank. And then the more horizontal black or gray charcoal line is the revolving credit. So that's the amount of credit card spending that we are seeing in the country. 2020, you saw that a lot of this stimulus package, a lot of citizens were benefiting from that, and you saw a sharp increase in savings from it. But you'll see gradually that as time goes, that the savings actually decreases. And in 2023 is where you see that line intersect. So going back to the question, how are Americans able to afford their $4,677 of vacation? It looks like they are spending their money. They are spending their savings, but they're also increasing or spending on their credit cards. You'll see from 2021 to 2023, you'll see a gradual increase in that slope. So we've already covered the CPI report for the month of March, but there's another data point that I wanted to introduce. It's called the Personal Consumption Expenditure, or the PCE. Now, what is the PCE? It's one of the leading economic indicators that the Fed uses. And it's broken into three components. The first component being based off of your personal income. And so how much money do you earn? The second component would be the disposable income that you have after taxes are taken out. And then the third part would be the consumer spending. So of the disposable income that you have, how much of it are you spending? And based off of this chart, it appears that Americans are spending all the money that they earn and spending the money on their credit card that they're afforded to borrow, which could be concerning given the recent events of banks shutting down and the federal government stepping in. So things to consider. So something that we want to frame against the CPI report and also the PCE, the Personal Consumption Expenditure report, is the unemployment rate. And from the unemployment report that we saw from our Bureau of Labor Statistics, we see that the unemployment rate is decreasing. So that's encouraging, right? But we need to remember that that is an aggregate report. So that's overall, what are we experiencing in the marketplace is that we're seeing a decrease in unemployment. And that's with the increase in job openings. But despite that, to keep it into context, we're also seeing massive layoffs continue, especially in the tech sector, in the logistics areas. We're seeing huge layoffs in there. But also something that we can't be deceived by, or that we need to consider as well, is that there are more Americans who are employed at this time, but part of this unemployment report, I saw that there was also a decrease in the amount of work hours that are being offered to employees. So no more overtime, no more full-time, but actually seeing fewer work hours in the work week that's being offered. Also, we're seeing a decrease in temp work or temp services. Being part of the dental field, that's something encouraging, and we'll go through that a little bit later. So what does this mean for dentists? There's a lot of risk-seeking behavior out there with you saw that the savings are being spent and that the increase in credit card spending is increasing as well. So my recommendation would be to wait just a little bit as things continue to settle. You'll see that money savings are disappearing. And what a position of strength that you'll be in if you exercise patience and continue to stack your capital. So hold on to your cash, and rates will continue to climb. Interest rates will continue to climb. And as Jerome Powell said, they're going to hold, at least for the foreseeable future, until they see that 2% inflation rate is within sight. And so they don't expect that to be until next calendar year now. So with every report that comes, it seems that they're pushing that horizon out further and further, moving the goalposts. So what's something that's encouraging, like I said earlier, was that employment trends are changing. Temp services are dropping, and that those employees will return back to the workspace, to the office space. So no longer will you be held hostage to the secondary market and paying these exorbitant salaries, these high wages, as the economy continues to settle. Though I believe that those salaries will no longer be there, and that we'll go back to normal wages. So if you're holding onto your cash, you're going to see some expense savings there with your personnel overhead costs. So those are all things to consider with the month of March CPI.